Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Chuggu Podcast. My name is Thomas Durning, and today I am joined by my co-host, Pearse McLaughlin. Hello, Pearse.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. On today's podcast, we will be discussing last weekend's English Premier League results, discussing all the latest transfer news, and at the end of the podcast, Pearse will be giving a rundown of all the latest Asian football news. So coming up next, we'll discuss all of last weekend's English Premier League results. So on Saturday, the 13th of January, the results were Chelsea 1, Fulham 0, Newcastle United 2, Manchester City 3. And then on Sunday, the 14th of January, we had Everton 0, Aston Villa 0, and Manchester United 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2. So there was only 4 Premier League matches played this weekend. So, Pearse, which one out of them 4 that stands out to you?
It's got to be the Newcastle 2, Man City 3. Thought Man City played brilliantly. At times, dominated for large spells. And then Newcastle, we've mentioned it, they're on a sticky run of form at the moment in terms of Premier League action. I think they failed to win in the last 7 games. But they managed to get a quick-fire double to put themselves in the lead at St James's Park. Got the crowd right behind them. 2 fantastic goals by Alexander Isak and Anthony Gordon. Quite similar down the left-hand channel, cutting in and bending in the far corner. I think that's something that Ederson lacks in terms of his shot-stop ability. Obviously, we all know how good he is with the ball at his feet. And obviously, we see the return of the main man that's been out for a long, long time, and that's Kevin De Bruyne. He's just doing what he does best. He just picks out a run at the far post, which catches Kieran Trippier off guard for just a second, and young Oscar Bob shows tremendous footwork to go around the goalkeeper. Not just to control the ball, but then to go around, show the composure, turn the goalkeeper and slot it home, and thought they thoroughly deserved the win. But it just shows you how tight this league is. Like you say, Newcastle were clinical when they needed to be, but at the vital moments, split second, switch off, and you've got somebody the quality of Kevin De Bruyne. Just get that vision, just get the accuracy, and he's got the quality to make that pass. Considering how long he's been out for, that will be vital importance for Pep Guardiola in the run-in for the Premier League this season, because they're not atop the league and they're chasing the pack, and you expect them with De Bruyne to then build up his mark sharpness to then go on that continued run, which he always seems to do with Manchester City after Christmas. And you'd expect them to now be title favourites with Kevin De Bruyne fully fit.
Yeah, definitely my standout match from this last weekend. It was a brilliant match to watch. Newcastle played really well. Scored 2. I think every goal in that match was just brilliant. Bernardo Silva's the first goal. Bernardo Silva's was brilliant. Then the 2 Newcastle goals with Isak and Gordon were really good. And then obviously De Bruyne's at the end as well was brilliant. And then Oscar Bob's last minute goal was so well taken. Just to spin the ball with his feet, it was a really, really good goal. But no, I think that was a really big win for Man City. Because as you said, now that De Bruyne's back, and this is the time of year where they really start kicking in, where they're sort of they're a bit bored at the start of the season, and then once January kicks in, that's when they start really steamrolling a bit, and then they seem to go on this big massive run of wins and end up winning the Premier League at the end of the day. So I think Manchester City, I think we'll start seeing them in the next couple of weeks, kind of starting to click into gear. And yeah, definitely for me, when they start playing like that, they're definitely favourites for the title. And they've also got Erling Haaland to come back as well. So really good times, I think, for Man City coming up. And then I just want to talk, or just briefly mention the Man United Tottenham match. I thought that was a really good game as well. I thought Tottenham deserved to win that. I thought they were really, really good. Created some really good chances. And the fact that Tottenham are missing lots of key players. So they had no Kulusevski, Madison, Son, Basuma, Papisar. If that's five key players I've just mentioned, and they went to Man United, they went to Old Trafford, and they played really, really well. It's such and again I think we dedicate this podcast I think sometimes to Postecoglou, but like it's just so good to see him at the highest level and everybody realizing how kind of good a manager he is, because the way he's got his Tottenham team set up is they're really exciting to watch, and the Tottenham fans love him. They were singing his name all day on Sunday at Old Trafford. So Tottenham have got it really good, and for me they'll probably finish in the top four. I think they really will. They've just got it, spot on at the moment, and just discussing the fact that they've got two transfers, and I just want to ask you about that here. So last week they signed, former Genoa defender Radu Dragusin, and they also signed Timo Werner on loan. So what do you think about the two signings for Tottenham?
Well, Timo Werner, we know well from his time in Germany with Leipzig. He was electric in his first spell, then got his big money move to Chelsea, which didn't really quite work out. But he's a player that can play along either flank and through the middle. Sometimes he's a bit cumbersome at times in terms of his finishing. Like, he'll miss easy chances, but he'll score probably every third game or so. But he's got electrifying pace. He's good at beating a man, and he'll create havoc for defenders because defenders don't want to be running back the way. And I think that's a smart sign. A loan to buy. It's not mandatory. So it's a win-win for Tottenham, considering they've now lost Son, who's now in Asian Cup duty. And like you said, Kulusevski got injured as well. And you've got Mano Solomon, who's out for a prolonged period of time as well at Tottenham. And then you mentioned Dragusin, who, to be honest, I don't know much about him. I've not really seen him play. But the fact is that Bayern Munich wanted to hijack the deal just shows you how highly rated he is. In Genoa are in the top half of the table, so he must be doing something well. And pretty much every signing that Postecoglou's made at Tottenham has worked out well. And you look at, for example, Mickey van den Ven. He's been brilliant. Good young player at Wolfsburg, comes to Tottenham. He's set the Premier League alight. Him and Romero have been a formidable partnership, and you can see him and Dragusin now competing for that starting spot in terms of Romero as well. Just the three remains taken, and I think he'd probably be a brilliant signing. And obviously the other one that goes the other way is Eric Dier to Bayern Munich. I think we've got to touch on that as well. I think 9 years at Tottenham. It's a long, long time for any professional footballer to stay at a club for that length of time. He was very successful in his early years under Pochettino. I think he's a brilliant defender. He can play a variety of positions. I think it's another good signing for Bayern Munich because they can now. Harry Kane's now got his old pal, England teammate. Helps him settle in a bit more. And obviously for Bayern Munich, they've got a player that can be a squad rotation player in terms of he can play as a holding midfielder or anywhere along the back four in terms of centre half or a back three, whether it be they kind of rotate between formations. But I think it's a smart signing, not a massive fee, helps Harry Kane settle, and obviously he's probably traded up in terms of his career. Wasn't getting a sniff at Tottenham, and now he's went to a team that can potentially win the Bundesliga and the Champions League.
Yeah, it was so. Just firstly on Dragusin and Timo Werner. So Dragusin, same as you, I don't know too much about him, but what I've heard of him, he's young for a start. He's only 21. He kind of only started really coming onto the scene, kind of middle of last year, I think, just at the start of this season. Where he started really kind of kicking on in his career. He was at Juventus for quite a bit. He didn't play. I think he only played one game for them, but like obviously he's learned a lot. Obviously with Bonucci there, and I think Chiellini was still there at the time. So obviously he's learned he probably learned the art of defending much more when he was at Juventus. And then he's went to Genoa this season. He was on loan at them last season, but he signed permanently this season for them. And I think he started really well, and I think he's got comparisons to Van Dijk as well. So I think it's quite an exciting signing for Tottenham, and and also Timo Werner as well. I actually think it's a good signing because I think they thought, because obviously with Son going away, and they lost Harry Kane in the summer, that they are quite short uh, going forward. And Timo Werner's, I think, is a really good sign because I think he was available because he wasn't really getting much game time at Leipzig. So the Tottenham recruitment team have realised that he's become available, and I think it's a good signing for Tottenham just because of the style of play. Timo Werner's that player that he's got good pace. He's an energetic player, and I think it's a player that Postecoglou will really enjoy working with. He is quite frustrated at times because his finishing uh, isn't the best. It's not the top quality, but he started on Sunday against Man United, and I thought he played really well. He was involved in the game a lot. He got an assist for Tottenham's second goal. And he did seem to really. It's only been one game, but it did really seem to suit the style of play that Tottenham are playing at the moment. So, yeah, I think two good signings, and just also touching on that as well, like the fact that Tottenham got these two players in really early, and it's quite similar with Celtic. When Postecoglou was at Celtic, Celtic seemed to always get their January transfer business done really early. So Postecoglou just seems to get the get the signings really, really early, and get them bedded in. Yeah, two really good signings, and then obviously Eric Dier, who wasn't getting any game time at Tottenham. It was quite obvious he wasn't part of the plans. Obviously he's going to Bayern Munich on loan, and I think it's a good signing for Bayern Munich because he's experienced. He can play a number of positions, as you said. Obviously, the Harry Kane thing is quite. I didn't think about that, but that's quite a good example to use. The fact that it can help Harry Kane a bit more. Uh, and yeah, it's a good sign for Bayern Munich. It's a loan at the moment, but I think it could turn into permanent as well. So a really good signing for Bayern Munich, and in terms of Tottenham, he had a really good career at Tottenham. He played quite a lot for them. I think he made over 200 appearances for them. So yeah, overall for Tottenham, it's been a really good start to the window. Two players in, and one player out. So yeah, more keep our eye out for Tottenham in case they might do more business in the next few weeks. So we'll just briefly move on to not talking transfer news in a moment because there's been a bit of breaking news today that AS Roma have sacked Jose Mourinho. So Mourinho was in charge of Roma for 3 years, and he leaves Roma, who are sitting in ninth in the table with 29 points. There are 5 points adrift of the Champions League spots. So that's quite a big breaking news. And obviously Roma, they've actually already got a new manager in. They've appointed legend Daniele De Rossi, who made over 400 appearances for Roma. So he's now their new manager. So what do you think, Pearse, about Mourinho getting sacked and De Rossi getting appointed?
I think it's a bit of a shocking one, to be honest, because of what he's achieved in his short tenure in Roma, and I think the fans adored him. Like you say, in his first season, he got Europa Conference League win, Roma's first trophy in 14 years, which is a massive feat. Brings that winning mentality back to the club. And then last season, he got them to the Europa League final and were penalties away from winning it against Sevilla. And everyone knows Sevilla is like the serial winners of the Europa League. That's like Real Madrid with the Champions League. They seem to find a way just to always win. And this season, like you say, you touched on it. They're only 5 points off of fourth place, which is Champions League positions, and it is super tight because you look at the table from 59th. So Atalanta, Lazio, Bologna, Napoli, and Roma, all separated by 5 points. So it's extremely tight. But I think the owners don't want them just to be qualifying for the Champions League. They want them to be qualifying and competing for the title. And they don't have the squad. They don't have the investment, and they get Lukaku in on loan. But I think like his first season, I think they spent close to £100 million. But since then, the last 2 seasons, he's had to promote so many youth players, and that he's made so many young players with their debut at Roma. I think he's brought through the most players under any manager in Roma's history. And I think that's an incredible achievement, but I don't think that's down to choice. I think that's down to necessity because so many injuries, players aren't performing, or the fact is he just has to play the youngsters because he's not getting investment that he needs to try kick on and compete with the likes of Inter Milan, AC Milan, Juventus, Napoli, to name a few, because they're the four big boys at the moment. And it's pretty hard to compete with Inter, who are running away with the Serie A this season. But 5 points, I think that's pretty achievable to turn it around. And I think as a manager experienced in the quality as Jose Mourinho, yeah, I think he'd have done it. But to a point, Daniele De Rossi, a man that made over 600 appearances for Roma, one man club apart from his wee spell in Boca Juniors at the end of his career. It's his first job in management, so it's a risk. It's a rookie manager, but it's his second job, sorry. But I don't really know his first spell, but to get a big club like Roma, as a legend, it's pretty hard to live up to obviously legendary status as a player, because we all know players like Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, to name a few, brilliant footballers, but they're not really necessarily good managers. And obviously obviously the owners now want them to turn things around pretty quickly and start picking up wins. So if he doesn't get off to a good start, then who knows what could happen. But the fact is, you'll have a familiar face in the building. He'll demand respect right away. And that's one thing he will, because he is a legend. Similar to Francesco Totti, probably two of the most iconic players in recent times. But no, probably smart decision bringing him in. But I thought they probably should have stuck with Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I'm not that surprised. I'm not that surprised because I've got a kind of theory with Jose Mourinho. So I always seem to think when it comes to like the third season in charge of a club, that's when his kind of, I don't know, that's when it kind of starts falling apart a little bit. You know, it happened at Man United. The first 2 seasons were okay. Then the third season it kind of fell apart and then he got sacked. Same with Tottenham. And you're Tottenham that, he should never have got sacked in my opinion. But like there seems to be a thing with Mourinho after like the second season. It kind of starts not really going well. And then they don't make the improvements that they kind of should be. I get your points about the fact that he has obviously won the Conference League. They were a penalty kick away from winning the Europa League, but I just think where they are on the table, that's not really what Roma want to aspire to. They haven't played Champions League football yet under Mourinho. And that's what they don't want to be playing Europa League, Conference League. They want to be playing Champions League, but also competing for the title at the same time. So I'm kind of not surprised, to be honest, because I haven't really started well this season as well. Uh, you know, um, the, I also get the point about the fact that they don't have a lot of money in terms of other clubs like Inter Milan, but they are sitting quite low on the table at the moment. Eighth. And yeah, I'm not that too surprised, but with Mourinho, but I'm in terms of him getting another job, I'm sure he'll have tons of offers. I think he even said um publicly that he definitely sees himself managing in Saudi Arabia. Like he thinks that will happen. So wouldn't be surprised if Saudi Arabia is his kind of next management job. And then obviously Daniele De Rossi, it's his second managerial. So he was in charge of Spal. I think they're a second division Italian side. It didn't really go well. He was only there for about a few months, and then he got sacked. So this is his second job. And my God, what a job it is for him. He's a total legend of Roma. I think he's born and bred there as well. Um, and for him to, manage his boyhood club, what a dream for him. And it's an interesting one with these appointments because I always worry because like obviously the fans adore him, but I always worry that in case it doesn't go well, then his reputation gets tarnished, and because of the fact that he might not be doing a good job. And I hope that doesn't happen because he's a total legend of Roma. And the fans, they'll definitely start giving time because of who he is and the respect that they have for him. So I think they definitely will give him time at the start, and I hope he does really do well, De Rossi, because he's a young manager and also that connection with Roma as well. So yeah, very interesting appointment. But going back to what the original question, I'm not surprised that Mourinho got sacked. They haven't really started well this season, Roma, and uh, we'll see how De Rossi gets on now that he's in charge of his boyhood club. So we'll just move back on to the transfer news. So obviously we're only a week or two into this January transfer window. There's a couple of bits of news that we can talk about. So obviously we found out last week that Borussia Dortmund had signed Jadon Sancho on loan from Man United. So Jadon Sancho returns to Borussia Dortmund after they left in 2021. So what do you think about that, Pearse?
Well, I think it's a smart move for him because he was never going to apologise to Eric Ten Hag, and both of them I think were just it was like two egos clashing. The two of them weren't backing down, and I think the best thing for him was to go back home, which he's mentioned in his signing video that it's a club where he made his professional debut. And he did so well at, and he got his big money move to Manchester United. So it is a 6 month loan with no option to buy. I think he can just go and enjoy play football, and he could play Champions League football, which he won't be doing this season at Manchester United if he stayed. So he's got a chance to compete in the knockout stages against the biggest players. And from Manchester United's point of view, it's a chance for them to get his value up in terms of if they want to resell him, because I think if they were to sell him now with an option to buy, I'm pretty sure it would be like £20 million, something like that, around that mark, because he hasn't kicked the ball and his spell at Manchester United has been nothing short of shambolic in terms of his performances on the part, and obviously his goal return and assist return has just not been to the level that he showed at Dortmund. And if he goes back to Dortmund, I think he'll hit the ground running, and he's already done that. In his first game off the bench, he got an assist from Marco Reus, which evidently was his last assist for Dortmund in the Bundesliga. So that connection is still there, and you can see he's back putting a smile on his face. I think once he gets minutes, I think he'll set the Bundesliga alight, and he could potentially be that difference maker for Dortmund to get back into Champions League positions in the title race, because they're well short. And Edin Terzic was under severe pressure, and that's why they did bring in Nuri Sahin as an assistant coach as well to try and get performances better. And I think Jadon Sancho could be that difference. So I think in terms of your question, brilliant for Jadon Sancho, brilliant for Manchester United, increased their market value on Jadon Sancho, and obviously brilliant for Dortmund because I think he's a difference maker for them in terms of competing for the Bundesliga.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good signing for Borussia Dortmund. Just briefly, also, I agree. Like Jadon Sancho and Eric Ten Hag were never ever going to sort that out. Eric Ten Hag was looking for an apology, and Jadon Sancho was never going to give it to him. So it's been quite obvious for quite a while now that Jadon Sancho was going to leave. I was quite surprised that it's going to be Borussia Dortmund. I never really expected Borussia Dortmund to come back in for him. I don't know why. But he just seems to, you know, kind of belong at Dortmund. Like it just seems to fit for him. When he got announced last week, he just the smile on his face was really good. He said that he feels like he belongs there. He had such a good time in his first spell at Dortmund. And then, as you said, the fact that he got an assist his first match kind of just says it all. Because it's been quite a tough couple of years for Sancho at Man United. He hasn't really kind of got going at Man United at all. So a really good signing for Borussia Dortmund. They are quite in a sticky spell at the moment. As you said, Edin Terzic was under a bit of pressure. He had to get the kind of the kind of dreaded vote of confidence from the board at Dortmund to say that he's still going to be the manager. So Jadon Sancho will definitely help them with that. And I think Borussia Dortmund will have quite a good second half of the season if they get Jadon Sancho fit and firing again, because when he's fit and firing, he's such an exciting player. So yeah, really good signing for Borussia Dortmund, and I really see Sancho doing well the next 6 months.
And another thing with
Um,
as well, Tom, is obviously the Euros is coming up this summer as well. So the fact is, if he plays
that's a
well,
good point. Yeah,
he can make his way into that England squad, which now seemed really unlikely.
that's a really good point. Yeah, because if he does really well at Borussia Dortmund, if he starts getting goals and assists and playing every match, then he's definitely going to be right in the ideas of Gareth Southgate in terms of getting into that England team for the Euros. So no, that's a really good point to think about that. But it just makes sense for him. Come back to Dortmund. He just seems to belong there. It's such a really good move for him. And then let's see what happens in summer with Man United. You know, maybe if we might not see Eric Ten Hag next season at Man United, so Sancho might come back and get back in that team and really start his Man United career, or it could go the other way. We don't know. But yeah, so we'll move on from that. And for the final part of the show, Pearse will give his Asian football roundup.
Yeah, so obviously the Asian Cup is now officially kicked off. First match has been played for both Japan and South Korea. So we'll start off with Japan first. So on Sunday, the 14th of January, Japan hosted Vietnam and they won 4-2. A double for Minamino, Kaito Nakamura, and then a late goal by Ayase Ueda. Still victory. So Kaito Nakamura scored the third and all-important goal to put the Japan in front just before the break. So that's now 6 goals in his last 6 caps for Kaito Nakamura. So you get a goal versus El Salvador, a double versus Turkey, a goal versus Canada, a goal versus Thailand, and now a goal versus Vietnam. So it's terrific form for the Stade Reims winger slash forward. And I think he's been pivotal for Japan. And I think he's undroppable at the moment. So Japan bounced back from an early scare to claim a 4-2 victory against Vietnam in the opening Asian Cup Group D clash on Sunday. A double for Takumi Minamino and a stunner from Kaito Nakamura restored the lead late in the first half after Vietnam stunned the 4-time Asian Cup champions by going 2-1 in front. So Hajime Moriyasu's world number 17 ranked side dominated possession but showed their vulnerability to counterattacks and set pieces against a 94th ranked Vietnam team managed by former Japan boss Philippe Trossier, who led the Samurai Blue to the 2000 Asian Cup title and the 2002 World Cup last 16. And so the second group stage match for Japan will be on this Friday, the 19th of January, and they'll be away to Iraq. So that's now first versus second in the group. So Iraq beat Indonesia 3-1 in their opening game, and also Japan just beat Vietnam 4-2. So it's going to be top of the table clash in terms of the group, and that's set for an 8:30 kickoff. So a very exciting match. And you'll probably make Japan slight favourites for that match, but exciting nonetheless. So moving on to South Korea. So they played on Monday the 15th of January. So South Korea beat Bahrain by 3-1. Hwang In-beom opener. And Hashash pulled one back just after the break. And then a double from Lee Kang-In, who was a standout player in the game. So Lee Kang-In got 2 goals. He created 3 big chances, 6 dribbles completed, 3 shots, 40 out of 43 passes completed, 8 passes into the final third, and 4 ball recoveries. So he was all over the park. He was the main man, and considering you've got Human Song on the starting lineup as well, the fact is a young man at only 22 years old, just dominating and being the difference maker for South Korea in what was a pretty poor performance by South Korea standards. So South Korea passed the physical test from Bahrain to win their Asian Cup Group E opener 3-1 thanks to Lee Kang-In's second half double at the Jassim bin Hamed Stadium on Monday. With the score at 1-1 after goals from Hwang In-beom and Bahrain's Abdullah Al-Hashash, PSG's Lee turned on the style with two unreal strikes that had the South Korean fans screaming in delight. Yeah, so it was a match that was quite physical. Bahrain were quite physical in terms of their challenges, but yellow cards were handed out more frequently to the South Korean players, which could be detrimental later on in the tournament because they get yellow cards. So these are the yellow cards for both sides. So Kim Min-jae, Son Heung-min, Cho Gu-sung, they're the three main players. So it's a starting striker, your captain, and your starting centre back, as long as Park Young-woo and Lee Ki-ji. But they're the three ones that could be vital because if they've picked one more yellow card, then they could be suspended for the next match. I think if they lose Kim Min-jae and Son, that'll be it'll be unthinkable because that just makes them so much weaker. And Bahrain get booked was Ali Madan and Moses Jonah. So on Saturday, the 20th of January, South Korea will play their second match, and that'll be away to Jordan, who themselves is another top of the table clash. So Jordan played Malaysia in the opening group stage game, and they thumped Malaysia by 4-0. And obviously South Korea beat Bahrain 3-1. So second versus first. So it's going to be another exciting clash, and it just shows you that the standard from all teams in this tournament is pretty high, and there'll be no easy games. And I think this one for South Korea will be probably the toughest test they'll face so far, even though Bahrain did cause them quite a lot of problems as well. So both exciting clashes in terms of Jordan versus South Korea, and obviously Japan's second match as well. So the 2024 K-League 1 fixtures have been released. The opening round matches are as follows. So the first match will be on Friday the 1st of March, and it'll be Ulsan HD, formerly known as Ulsan Hyundai, versus Pohang Steelers. So it's first versus second from last season. And that will be a 2 p.m. kickoff. So it'll be another tasty fixture to kick off the K-League 1 season. And then later on at 4:30 we have Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors versus Daejeon Hana Citizen, which is another good tie. And then Saturday the 2nd of March, we have Gwangju FC versus FC Seoul. So Gwangju FC, Asian Champions League team this season, surprise package from last year, finishing third against an FC Seoul side who struggled last year in the bottom half of the table. That's also set for a 2 p.m. kickoff. And then later on, we've got two matches at 4:30, and that'll be Incheon United versus Suwon FC, and Gangwon FC versus Jeju United. So Suwon and Gangwon, both sides that are just avoided relegation narrowly through the playoffs. So there'll be hope for a better start to this season than last year. And then the final game is on Sunday, the 3rd of March, and that is Daegu FC versus K-League 2 champions and new boys Gimcheon Sangmu FC, and that's set for 2 p.m. kickoff. So that'll be interesting to see the new boys in action round off the K-League 1 season opening weekend perfectly against Daegu FC. So Real Sociedad have announced a summer pre-season tour of Japan with details set to be decided, as well as establishment of an academy in Japan. Takefusa Kubo, Japan star now at the Asian Cup, and obviously a standout player for Real Sociedad, has said in a video message that he wants to play against his old club FC Tokyo next summer. And I think every person in Japan will be looking to get tickets as soon as possible. And that is all your latest Asian football news.
Thank you, Pearse. And thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Football Chuggu Podcast. This podcast will be available to listen to on the Football Chuggu YouTube channel and also the Football Chuggu website. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Bye bye.